Good morning, everyone, and happy engineers to day to you all. So, in the previous class, we were discussing about the trusses, and in design of steels part. Okay, in the subject, we'll be mainly designing the roof trusses. So, I was telling you about the different types of members, what you come across in this roof truss, and also the nature of forces in these members. So they'll be either in axial tension or axial compression over here. So entirely the design of truss, what we are coming across in this is a design of tension member or a design of a compression member. So that is what we'll be dealing with when we go for designing a roof truss. So in addition to this, uh, these are some connections. I hope I have not come up to this part. So these are some connections at the joints. In steel design, connections are very much important. Also, in addition to designing the member, if your connections are not safe, the members may not be properly attached over there. Okay, so it is important that you also give equal importance to the design of connections over here. So in case of trust, what you see is the members. I hope I'm audible to everyone. No problem with audio. Oh, okay. So this is the member details or connection details. What you see here. So when you have a large number of members, mainly when you want to connect two members or more than two members in a truss, we adopt a plate called gusset plate. Okay, this plate, what you see over here, this is a gusset plate, this one. Okay, or here the plate what you see here. Okay, so these are all called the gusset plates. They help to join these members together. Okay, and if you observe in this case, you can see the line passing through the centroid of these angle sections. They are shown, they are intersecting at one point over here. Okay, all these lines which are connecting, they come and intersect at this point. Okay, so it indicates that we are meeting the concurrent force system. Okay, the requirements of a concurrent force system, the line of action of all forces are intersecting at one point. So that's why we use the gusset plate. The problem is we cannot overlap such members at the junctions or at the joints. It is not possible to overlap the angle sections or other steel sections what we come across. For that purpose, in order to make it convenient to connect the members properly and to make sure that this concurrency is achieved, gusset plate will be used over here. Okay, there is no hard and fast rule for the shape of the gusset plate. Okay, so it is all depending on the convenience of the fabrication. Okay, we need to make sure that the member should be we will be able to place the members properly over that gusset plate. Okay, and the required orientation of the member can be maintained. Okay, the angle what at what it has to be positioned should be, we should be able to maintain over there. So these all things will decide the shape of the gusset plate, the shape, whether it should be a rectangular plate, whether it should be a trapezoidal plate of this form, or some any other arbitrary shape may be adopted over there. Okay, so that will be the criteria on which we decide the shape of the gusset plate. Okay, and for our design, we will not be designing any gusset plate shape or a gusset plate over here. Okay, thickness, what we have to ensure is this gusset plate should be strong enough to withstand the maximum force in these members. Say if one of the member over here is experiencing a force of 100 kilonewtons out of these two. Okay, in this connection, say this tie member is having a force of 100 kilonewton in tension. Okay, and this is carrying a force of 80 kilonewton in compression or in tension. Okay, so what I need to make sure is thickness of gusset plate should be sufficient so that it will not rupture while transferring this force of 100 kilonewton. Okay, so that is the thickness, how you are going to decide the thickness of gusset plate. Okay, so that is the criteria on which thickness of gusset plate will be determined. Okay, shape, it may be any shape. Okay, so that is one. Now in addition to this, when we design the member, okay, we design for the member for the force which they have to carry. That is one thing. Okay, say if it is a compression member, we design it for a compression. If at all, if it is a tension member, we design it for the tension. Okay, but sometimes what happens in the truss is the member forces will be extremely small, very, very small. Sometimes a member may be carrying zero force. It may be a zero force member. Okay, but still we need to decide its size, whether it has a negligible force or it is a zero force member. Okay, in any case, the member size has to be decided. Okay, if it is a member which supports a huge amount of compression or tension, it is very much easier for us to decide the size and the cross-sectional area of the member on that force basis. Okay, but also what one more thing, what will govern the design of member is these connections. Okay, so when I want to provide the bolts over here at the connection, okay, if I adopt a member which is of 30 mm, say an angle section which is having a width of 30 mm, this leg width if it is 30 mm, and I'm using 22 mm diameter bolts in this leg, then it is not possible for me to provide required end distance or the edge distance over here, mainly the edge distance. Okay, so this edge distance will not be available in that case. If I use 22 mm diameter bolts, and if I adopt this member of 30 by 30 by 8, ISA 30 by 30 by 8, then what I will be doing, I'll be drilling a hole of 24 mm in this member. In 30 mm width of the leg, I'm providing a hole of 26 mm or 24 mm. Okay, so that should not happen over there. Okay, so you need to make sure that a sufficient amount of edge distance is available over here, over this edge. Okay, so this size of the bolt or the connection sizes, okay, what we provide, the bolts or the fasteners, that will also govern the member size. Okay, choosing the member, we should be careful enough to give importance to this connections also. Okay, so depending on what is the diameter of the bolt, that will also be taken into account when we are selecting the angle section from our steel table. Okay, if at all the force is very large enough, then fine, we'll get a angles or the members of larger size also, larger size over there, then connection won't be a problem. Providing the required size of bolt in that may not be a problem over there, but anyhow we will make sure that the required connection distances will be achievable when we select the angles. Okay, so that is one more criteria what will help us in deciding the size of our angles. Okay, so I'm telling angles because we'll be designing a roof truss and there we'll be providing angle section. Okay, most commonly the angle section. Okay, some more connections what you have, what are shown over here, they are all these are connections. Okay, in case of flat type of truss, this is the connection details what you come across over here. Okay, you'll also be doing the detailing for this in your lab also. Okay, so there you need to have this picture in your mind of these connections. And okay, this is one case wherein I sections have been used. Normally you come across such things over here. Okay, in this case there is a I section used over here. So if at all if it is a bridge truss, okay, in case of trusses provided for the bridges, in addition to not just the member the angle sections, we may have to go for channel and I sections also over there. Okay, because the load will be very large. So in that case it will be even the channel and I sections what will be used. So arrangement, you can see here, this is a arrangement wherein the angle sections have been provided back to back. Okay, double angle section placed back to back. Okay, even here also. Okay, this is the arrangement. I was telling you the principal rafter, this mainly the principal rafter and the bottom tie member. What we'll be doing is we'll go for double angle section placed back to back over here. Okay, like this. Okay, the rest other members what we have, okay, these interior members of the truss. Okay, these members other than the principal rafter and the bottom tie member, what we'll be doing is there we'll provide this single angle section what you see over here. this type of member will be used over there. Okay, so these are the different members what we'll be using in the trusses. Okay, here also this is a member angle section provided back to back. Okay, so I hope these arrangement of the angles is clear. This is the bottom tie member which is provided back to back. Okay, so sorry, this is actually the shoe angle. This is the bottom tie member and the principal rafter, same things. Okay, I want these things to be clear in your mind, what you'll be designing, what type of member you'll be providing. Okay, right. Now, before we take up that the actual design, before we get into the problem, I want you to brush some of your basics of design of tension member and the compression member. Okay, so I'll be taking up a worked out example from Subramanian textbook, and we'll see what all things will come across in design of these tension member and the compression member. Okay, so design of tension member, it is straightforward and much more simpler compared to design of compression member. Okay, so what all things you have to take care here is you need to make sure that the member will not yield, okay, at the gross section. Okay, this is the section of IS 800 2007 which helps us or guides us in designing a tension member. Okay, and here what we have is for a design of tension member, you need to check it for 3 different criterias. One is for yielding of gross cross section. Okay, so here what you need to make sure is the force within any member, any tension member, is less than the design capacity of that member over here. Okay, TD is the design strength of the member. Okay, so 6.2. Okay, it has the strength governed due to yielding. It will give you the strength governed due to yielding of gross cross section. Okay, so we have already come across this expression over here. What you see here, TDG. Okay, which is equal to Ag into Fi by gamma m naught. Ag is the gross cross-sectional area, or whatever is the full area of the member, that will be Ag, which is available from our steel table. Okay, Fi, the yield stress, gamma m naught, partial safety factor for yielding. Okay, 1.1. So this is one criteria which will be deciding the strength of the tension member, TDG, based on yielding. Okay, we need to check it for this first. Then design due to rupture at critical section. Okay, due to rupture at critical section for angle section, this is the plates. This is for the plates. What is given here in 6.3? The first part is for plates, flat plates. Then you move ahead in this. We have for the angle section, single angle section. Okay, it is mentioned for single angle section. If at all, if it is a double angle section, simply calculate what is the strength based on single angle section, then multiplied by the 2. Okay, or else what you can do is area you can calculate it for both angle section, considering both angles. Okay, so what you have here is 2 expressions you will come across. One is approximate expression, which is based on this factor alpha. Okay, where depending on the number of bolts in the connection, we can choose what is the value of alpha. Or if you want to be exact and precise, then what we'll be doing is we'll be going ahead with this particular expression, what is there here. Okay, which has this factor for the shear lag effect. This beta is for the shear lag effect. Okay, so what it has is TDN, okay, which is equal to 0.9 ANC Fu upon gamma m1 plus beta into Ag naught into Fi upon gamma m naught. Okay, most of them are stress and the factor of safety here in this expression, except the value of ANC, Ag naught and beta. Okay, ANC, what is this ANC? It is the net area of the connected leg. Okay, the leg which is connected to your gusset plate or the end member, this is the connected leg over here. Okay, so what is the net area of this connected leg? That is ANC, whereas Ag naught is the gross area of this outstanding leg. Okay, the unconnected leg or this outstanding leg, what is the gross area? Okay, calculating these two is simple. What is the width of this leg minus half the thickness into the thickness of this angle? Okay, I am deducting half thickness because half of the thickness will be considered in unconnected leg and half in the connected leg. Okay, so at this junction, half thickness will be considered in the unconnected leg and another half will be considered in the connected leg. Okay, that's why we always deduct that half thickness in this total width. So this total width minus half the thickness of the angle section, this whole thing multiplied by the thickness of this angle section. That will give you A and C. Okay, and also when we talk about the connected leg, what deduction we need to take is the bolt holes. If at all bolt holes are present there, if it is bolted connection, then deduct for the bolt holes. Total width minus half the thickness minus the bolt hole diameter. Okay, so that multiplied by the thickness of angle section. So that will be A and C. Now AG naught, simply the width of this section minus half the thickness into the thickness of this angle section. So that will be the gross area without taking into account any bolt holes. This is the unconnected leg. So we'll not come across any bolt holes in this leg. So this will be the net area of connected leg and the gross area of the outstanding leg. Now beta is the shear lag factor. Okay, there will be a shear lag in the unconnected leg. So that's why it has been multiplied by this factor beta. So how to obtain this beta is mentioned in the code itself here only. Okay, this is an expression which will give you the value of beta. Okay, so what it says 1.4 minus 0.076 into W by T into Fi by Fu into Bs upon Lc. And the upper limit for this is Fu into gamma m naught by Fi into gamma m1. Whereas the lower limit is 0.7. Your beta, whatever you calculate, okay, whatever you calculate, that should be above 0.7 and below this ratio of stresses. Okay, if at all, if it exceeds this ratio, then limit it to this value. Okay, this ratio. If at all, if it is going below 0.7, then take the minimum value of beta as 0.7. Okay, that you need to keep in your mind. This code will be there with you. It will be always available for you whenever you take any design or for your exam purpose, anything. But understand the terminologies properly and use them in this expression. Okay, so what you have here is W is the outstanding leg width. Okay, outstanding leg width. So if at all, if you have ISA equal angle section, the width of both leg will be same. And sometimes we go for unequal angle section, then in that case, the width of the two legs, the connected leg and the outstanding leg, they may be of different widths. So see which one is unconnected leg, which width is unconnected. Okay, based on that, you take that as your W, width of the unconnected leg. Okay, and that will be W. BS, the shear lag width. So how do you calculate that? BS is this W, width of this unconnected leg, plus the distance up to the center of the bolt hole line. Okay, distance up to the center of the bolt hole minus the thickness, thus over here. Okay, so this is shear lag width, BS, total width of the outstanding leg plus the distance up to the center of this bolt hole minus the thickness of the angle. That is the shear lag width. Okay, now if you have welded connection, here you have the shear lag width value. BS is simply equal to the width of unconnected leg. Okay, BS. One term in this was W, width of outstanding leg. The other term here is BS. Okay, the shear lag width. Okay, now coming to this, T is the thickness of angle section, what you choose. LC is the length of the connection. How do you determine that LC? LC, you see how many number of bolts you have provided, what pitch distance you have adopted over there. So the total number of pitch distance, okay, the total number of pitch distance will be equal to your LC. Okay, that itself is your length of the connection, length of the end connection, that is from first bolt to last bolt, that will be the length of the connection. Okay, say if I have provided 8 bolts in a connection, so what number of pitch distance I'll come across is 7. Okay, the total pitch distance will be 7. If at all pitch distance is 50 mm, 7 into 50 will be my LC value. Okay, length of the connection, that will be my LC value. I'll take up example so that it will be much more clear you. This is for entirely brushing your design of tension and compression member, because this particular truss design involves only the design of tension and compression, nothing else other than that. Okay, so you need to be very thorough in these things. And after you have determined these PS, LC, okay, and W, so next further part is substituting them in this expression to obtain what is the value of beta, and then compare that beta with your upper and lower limits, adopt suitably the value of beta. Okay, so that tells you what the design strength of the angle section under rupture. Once you get this beta, substitute them over here, A and C, A, G naught and beta, and go for calculating this TDN. Okay, so that is the second strength what we calculate over here from the code. Okay, strength due to rupture at the critical section. The earlier first one was due to the yielding of gross section. Okay, now other than these two, we have one more strength what we come across is the block shear. Okay, it will also fail due to block shear. So this is 6.4 wherein you calculate the strength due to block shear. So two expressions are there for block shear, depending on whether the yielding will take place along shearing plane or the yielding will take place along the tension plane. Okay, so there are two planes involved in this block shear. One plane subjected to tension, other plane subjected to shearing. Okay, this is the diagram for your block shear. So this line along 1, 2, okay, it will be experiencing shearing. The line along 2 and 3 will be experiencing tension. So what may happen is when this angle section fails or this tension member fails, the yielding may occur along 1 and 2 along this plane, and rupture or tearing of this angle section may occur along 2 and 3. Okay, that is one case. For that, we have one expression. Another case is rupture may take place along this line 1 and 2, and yielding may occur along line 2 and 3. For this, we have one more expression. That's why we come across these two expressions over here, TDB over here. They are given two expressions for TDB. So that depends on whether how the yielding and rupture are taking place over there. Okay, so that is the third strength for tension member. Now, out of these three, which one is least? Which one is giving you the least strength will be taken as the design strength under tension for that angle. And your force, what is coming in that member, should be less than this TD. Okay, so coming to one example, what you have already dealt with this is, so here it is about angle section has been given here. It is 100 by 75 by 6 is connected to a gusset plate. Okay, so you need to determine the design tensile strength of the angle. Okay, I just want to make sure that you are familiar with this procedure. I want to revise your procedure. That's all. It is about determining the strength. Don't worry about that. So you can see here, calculation for ANC has been done. How they have done it? So the connected leg is this 100 mm leg has been connected. In that 16 mm bolt is provided. So what happens here is the bolt hole diameter will be of 18 mm. 16 plus 2 mm clearance. 18 mm will be my bolt hole diameter. So 100 mm is the width, minus this 18 is for bolt hole what is provided over there, minus half the thickness. ISA 100 by 75 by 6 mm is thickness, minus half the thickness. Okay, so this is the net width of this connected leg into the thickness of the angle section will tell you what is the net area of connected leg A and C. Okay, that is one area what we require. And gross area, here you can see here 75 mm leg is a unconnected leg here. It is mentioned in that problem. Don't worry about that. This is the 75 mm leg which is unconnected. Okay, so gross area here now will become 75 minus half the thickness, 75 minus 6 by 2. Okay, this width into the thickness of the angle section will give you what is the area, gross area of the unconnected leg. Okay, so gross area and the net area, A and C, AG naught. This is the total area. AG is the total area. This you can get it from the steel table. Don't go for adding these two, because here bolt hole has been considered. Whereas when you go for determining the strength due to yielding, the section will be somewhere here outside these bolts. Okay, so you'll not get the gross area required for us to calculate the yield strength by adding these two. Instead, it will be the total area of this angle section without considering any deduction of bolt holes. Directly take it from the steel table, what is mentioned over there. Okay, so the first strength is TDG. So AG into Fi upon gamma not gross area. So that on substituting, it is coming out to be 229.55 kilonewton. So one of the strength of this angle section under tension is 229.55 kilonewton TDG due to yielding. One more strength, what we require is due to rupture at the critical section. So already he has calculated ANC and AG not here. Okay, we have these two values which are here. So 474 mm square and 432 mm square. And beta, the shear lag factor. Okay, so 1.4 minus 0.076. W, okay, W, so 75 up to the center of bolt hole. What is the distance? Okay, W, okay, 75 minus 3. He has deducted only the half of the width. Okay, you just don't consider this. From my point of view, what I've told you, it will be that W will be 75 plus this distance G, whatever is mentioned here, plus this, okay, minus the thickness. That should be done. Okay, so that will tell you what is this shear lag width W. Okay, as per the code, what is given here, we'll follow this one. We'll be sticking to this W plus this WT or WL, what is given here, but it is distance up to the center of the bolt hole minus the thickness. Okay, so if I consider that G here, okay, when 100 mm leg is connected, it is 60. So for me, it will be 75 plus 60 minus 6. Okay, 75 plus 60 minus 6. That is how we will be calculating the width of the shear lag width over there. Okay, into that will be the shear lag width. Now, after that, what about the next one, that is BS? Okay, so okay, I think I missed that one. BS, actually, BS is here. I should have told. BS is 72. That is 75 minus the thickness he has done. That comes out to be 72 plus 60. Here it is done. Okay, it is correct. W is our width of the outstanding leg. Only the width of the outstanding leg. It will be simply 75 mm. Okay, sorry for that. W is the width of the outstanding leg. So it has done. It is done correctly. But only thing is he has deducted the thickness of that, half the thickness of the angle section. We'll not go for deducting that thickness. We'll directly adopt whatever is the width of outstanding leg. Please make check this. W, width of outstanding leg, 75 mm. We'll be directly taking 75 mm. Okay, and BS is the shear lag width, which will be 75. Okay, plus 60 minus the thickness of the angle. Okay, right. Then LS will be the length of the connection. So whatever number of bolts are provided over there. So number of bolts we can decide, because we know when we are designing the connection for a member, such a tension member, the force in the member will be given to you. This T will be given to you while designing, and we can decide what size of the bolts we are going to provide. Okay, so if I adopt a suitable diameter of the bolt, the strength of the bolt can be calculated. Okay, strength of a single bolt, and what we have is what is the force that has to be carried by the connection is given to us. So this T divided by strength of single bolt will tell you what number of bolts will be provided in the connection. Okay, depending on that, the LS can be determined. Okay, say in this case here, if you look at this particular picture here, 2, 4 and 6 bolts are there. What will be my LS? This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pitch distance will be coming over here. So 5 into 40, this value will be my LS value. 200 mm. Length of the connection, that will be 200 mm. From first bolt up to the last bolt will be the length of the connection. Okay, whether you count it from this side or this side, the pitches what you come across will be same. So that will be LS. So that is the another strength governed due to the rupture. Okay, one more strength what we come across is block shear. In case of block shear, you have 4 different areas what are to be calculated over there. One is the gross area AVG, gross area under along shearing plane, and the net area along the shearing plane. Okay, gross area along the shearing plane, when you are calculating that, it will be simply from this point up to the center of this bolt hole. Okay, the distance from this point up to the center of the bolt hole into the thickness of the angle. No need to make for any deduction for these bolt holes. I'll start from this center of the bolt hole and I'll measure the distance up to the end of this angle section. Okay, this length multiplied by the thickness of the angle. What that gives us is this AVG, gross area along shearing plane. Okay, so 5 into 40, these are the pitch distance what you have here, plus this end distance is 40 mm again. So 5 into 40 plus 40 into the thickness of angle section, 1440. This is the gross area along the shearing plane. Okay, when I am calculating the net area, what we have to do is, in this length you need to deduct the bolt holes. Okay, so there were 5 bolt holes over here, 1 2 3 4 5, plus half the bolt hole diameter is coming from this bolt hole. Okay, only half. We are coming up to the center of this bolt hole only. We are not going beyond that. So what they have done here is AVN will be 6 into 5 into 40 plus 40, the same distance, minus what? 5.5 bolt holes into 18 mm bolt hole diameter. Okay, they have deducted for 5.5 bolt holes. So that will tell you what is the net area along the shearing plane. So gross area along shearing plane, net area along shearing plane. Okay, these two areas are required. Other than this, when we come across the tension plane, okay, along the tension plane, again you have to calculate the gross area and the net area by the same technique what we did here. So the gross area will be this distance G multiplied by the angle thickness. Okay, from center of this bolt hole up to the end of this angle in this direction. Okay, perpendicular to the force in this direction. So this distance into the thickness of angle, that will be the gross area in tension. So 6 into 40, 6 is the thickness of angle into 40, that is G distance. Okay, so 240 mm square. And net area, you need to consider what number of bolt holes are coming along that line. If you observe here, only half the bolt hole diameter will come over here. From this, only half bolt hole diameter will be coming over here. So that's G, which was 40 minus 0.5 into 18 into the thickness of that angle. So this will be the net area. So altogether, you have to again take these two expressions from the code, okay, and substitute those various values of the areas. Okay, mainly calculating the gross area and net area along tension and shearing plane are important. Other than that, you have only the yield strength, ultimate strength, and the factor of safety corresponding to this yield strength and ultimate strength. Okay, so once you have the calculation of areas done, substitute them in these two equations, and that will tell you the two strength under block shear, TDB1 and TDB2. Like this, you'll be getting two strength. The least of these two will be the strength in block shear. Okay, TDB1, TDB2. So out of these two, whichever is least, 198.73 kilonewton. Okay, will be the strength under block shear. Okay, so this is one, and one more strength was due to rupture here, 241. Here it is 198 due to block shear. Due to rupture, it is coming out to be 241, and due to yielding 229. Out of these three, whichever is the least one will be taken as the strength of the member under tension. Okay, in this case 198.73 kilonewton will be the strength of the member under tension, strength of this angle section under tension. Okay, so this is what we need to do here. Okay, they will be dealing with the design strength of the tension member by considering these three different criteria. Okay. Please, if you have any questions, you can unmute and ask over here. I'm taking this in detail because last semester you had this subject, but you did not have any exams. I don't know how seriously you have gone through these things. So before I get into any design part over here, I just want to make sure that you are clear with these things. If you have any questions regarding the designs of tension members, code book, you have 3 sections. That is in section 6, you have 6.2, 6.3 and 6.4, which will help you in determining the strength of the angle section under tension. Okay. Is that okay? You can raise your hand or you can unmute and speak, because I'm not able to see the chat when I'm sharing the screen. Yes. Fine. Then one more is about compression member, design of compression member, what we have. Actually, Sanket Atigar had asked me on text. He was not able to clear his point on that day. He has asked whether there will be any sub questions in the question paper. There will not be any sub questions. The question paper, what you will find is part A, part B, or module 1 and module 2. They will be directly for 40 marks. The scheme for evaluation, it will be, the marks will be split, but for you, you'll not be having any sub questions. Question number 1A, 1B, no, not like that. It will be directly the question 1 for 40 marks, design the roof truss or design RCC part, then directly the second question in part B. Okay, so that will be the pattern what you will find in the question paper. You'll not have any sub questions over there. Okay, you can stop me in between. I'm going for the next part, that is the compression member design over here. You have also dealt with this design of compression member. Okay, and here we'll be designing the angle sections. We'll go ahead with the design of angle section in this. So let me just show you that part also. So many have joined here, and I wish you a happy Engineers Day. Most of you are not there in the morning. I'm not solving any problems. I'm just taking worked out problems from this, because we'll come across the same problems when we design the trusses. We'll be dealing with those problems. Okay, every step we'll be solving them. Here, I want you to be clear with these things. And one more is that you go ahead with designing the calculation of strength of the board. That part I'll leave it to you. How to determine the strength of the board, black boards, ordinary black boards. Okay, so under bearing, under sharing, single share, double share. On that basis, we used to calculate the design strength of the board, because we need to decide what number of bolts are there in the connection. okay, in the truss. So you should be also having the knowledge of calculating the strength of the bolt also. So that part, look into the code. You can go through any problem from any textbook, okay, and see that you will be able to calculate the strength of the bolt, how you decide the strength of the bolt. Yeah, other than this, if you have any doubts, you can ask. I'm just going through what all are required from design of this truss part. Okay, so this is the compression member design. So what you have here is the strength under compression. This is PD. Okay, so that PD is expressed as the effective area into the FCD, design permissible stress in compression. Okay, and we'll be making sure that we satisfy this criteria, that is force in any member under compression is less than its design strength PD. Okay, so FCD, calculating FCD is a question over here. So you have expression for calculating FCD. This stress reduction factor can be used, okay, or else you can determine this lambda and phi and directly use them for obtaining FCD over here. Okay, now in this truss we may have to go for designing maybe 2 or 3 or more than that members under compression. So we'll not go ahead with this expression every time now. Okay, instead what we'll do is we'll follow the charts. We'll use the charts what are provided in this, okay, particular code, that is A B C D and 9 A B C D, 8 A B C D and 9 A B C D were the charts wherein the value of stress reduction factor was expressed, or directly the FCD was expressed over there. Okay, we can get this FCD or this stress reduction factor chi from those tables, table number 8 and 9 over here. So here is one table. This is table number 8, in which the stress reduction factor has been given over here. So you have the KL by R, slenderness ratio. Okay, the critical slenderness ratio. Okay, that is R minimum. Based on that, this slenderness ratio has been expressed here, KL by R. And these are what? These are our yield stress. Okay, all these are yield stress. Okay, it is mentioned yield stress in MPa or Newton per mm square. So corresponding to our yield stress, okay, normally what we have is we use this 250 as our yield stress. So, and for the required KL by R ratio, we'll interpolate the stress reduction factor if we are using table 8 over here. Okay, so this is stress reduction factor calculation from the tables. In case if you go for table 9, this will directly give you the design compressive stress FCD. So here what we'll be doing is we'll be again dealing with two things. One is KL by R and another is the yield stress. So whatever is the value of KL by R for our member, the slenderness ratio, K into L is the effective length of the member. Okay, R is the radius of gyration. So for our ratio of KL by R and yield stress, what we are having, we'll be interpolating the FCD. In table 8, you'll interpolate for a stress reaction factor, whereas in table 9, you'll go for interpolating the FCD. Directly, you'll be getting the value of FCD. So knowing this FCD, once you calculate the FCD, maybe from stress reduction factor or directly from table over here, 9, you'll be able to get what is this design strength. Okay. Now, you have to go with table 8C or 9C only, because when we use angle section, our buckling class will be coming in C. Okay, it will be belonging to buckling class C. The angle sections, they fall in buckling class C. So all these tables 8 ABC or 9 ABC, they represent the buckling class A, B and C. They are representing the buckling class. You can see here in this buckling class table, buckling class of the cross section. I'm all taking these tables from IS 800. So here you can see when you are using angle sections or channel sections. Mainly we are dealing with angle sections over here. So these angle sections, they come under buckling class C. About any axis, they fall under buckling class C. Okay, so we'll be referring either table 8C or 9C. I want to go with finding FCD value. So what I'll do is I'll directly go to table 9C and find out what is my FCD. Knowing my KL by R ratio, once I calculate the KL by R ratio, I'll be using this table number 9C and I'll go for yield strength of 250. Okay, unless until specified, we'll take it as 250 Newton per mm square, and I'll go and interpolate the required value of FCD for the required KL by R. Okay, so that is how we'll be doing the design. Because expression, it takes a lot of time, so we'll not do that. So this can be done only when you have double angle sections. Okay, when you have concentric loading, when it is a double angle section, it will be loaded concentrically. So this is the case when you have double angle sections. In case if you have eccentric connections, okay, loaded through one leg only, we also come across such cases. Where we come across such cases is in these members which are within the truss. All these members, I said, they will be composed of single angle sections. Okay, so we have single angle section like this. Okay, so all these single angle sections, what we'll be doing is we'll be designing them as loaded through one leg only, or as a eccentrically loaded members. So in that case, the design or calculating the strength of member under compression is slightly different. Okay, so this is the table where you find the effective length factor over here. Okay, but in truss, don't use this one. Directly take the distances what is mentioned for you as your effective length. Okay, the distances what will be given to you in your question will be the center to center distances. That itself you consider for your calculation purpose as a effective length over there. Okay, you don't come across any such hard fixity over there. So whatever length you calculate or are given to you in the question, that itself you adopt as K into L. Okay, and from that you calculate the slenderness ratio, KL by R ratio. So if you take this part, that is in this page number 47. Okay, so single angle struts, you have this single angle strut. Okay, concentric loading, if any arrangement is done at the ends, then there may be concentric loading, or else what we have to do is we have to go with this angles loaded through one leg only, angles loaded through one leg. Okay, so here we will be determining the strength based on this angles loaded through one leg. For what I am telling this, for the members which are here, such members, all these members inside the truss. Okay, so all these members, when they are under compression, we'll be considering them as angles loaded through one leg only, this. Okay, except these two, the principal rafter, okay, and the bottom tie member. These two, what we will be doing is we will be designing them as double angle sections connected back to back like this. Double angle section, this is also double angle section. Okay, these two will be considered as double angle section like this, connected back to back. Okay, so for this single angles loaded through one leg only, what we have to do? So here you will be calculating the equivalent slenderness ratio. Okay, this lambda E. Will not go for calculating lambda, non-dimensional slenderness ratio. Instead, what we'll do is we'll calculate this equivalent slenderness ratio, lambda E. Okay, so here you will find this. This is the equivalent slenderness ratio, lambda E. Section 7 of IS 800. Okay, in that you'll find that. Okay, page number, you can go through this in your own time, 48, page number 48. Okay, so how to calculate this equivalent slenderness ratio? For that you require the factors K1, K2, K3. Okay, lambda E, it is expressed here. It is under the square root K1 plus K2 into lambda VB square plus K3 into lambda phi square. Okay, so we have K1, K2 and K3. which you can determine from this table 12. You can obtain the values of K1, K2, K3 from table number 12 over here. Okay, based on what is the end fixity condition. Okay, what number of boards are provided at the end. On that basis, we'll be taking the value of K1, K2, and K3. So normally, we'll not go for boards less than 2. We'll at least provide 2 boards in our truss connection. Okay, so our value of K1, K2, K3 either will be from this fixed condition or hinged condition, and number of boards being more than 2. So we'll be choosing K1, K2, K3 from this section of table 12. Okay, so you can see for fixity condition, if you assume the condition to be fixed, K1, K2, K3 value are here. In case if you assume that the end conditions with 2 number of boards, if the end conditions are hinged, then the values what we'll be having is these 0.7, 0.6, and 0.5. You can interpolate for intermediate condition, partial fixity, that can also be done. Okay, so what condition will choose is number of boards will be 2 or more than 2. Okay, and the end condition will keep it as hinged. Okay, so because that is the most worst condition when you have hinged condition. When fixity is increased, the member can support more load. Okay, but as the fixity reduces, okay, if we move towards the hinge condition, the load carrying capacity of the member will go on reducing because it tends to buckle. Okay, when you have a hinge condition at the end. So what we'll do is number of bolts in our truss connection will be 2 or more, and for these members the condition and fixity condition will choose it to be hinged. Okay, that is fixed. Okay, in our problem we'll decide based on this K1, K2, K3. So always you can go ahead with choosing K1, K2, K3 as 0.7, 0.6, 0.5. Okay, you can mention this condition, then take the value of K1, K2, K3. Okay, so that is one. Now after you have this K1, K2, K3 values, lambda VB and lambda phi are here. Okay, so for that you require this RVB. Okay, radius of gyration. This can be obtained in the steel table. RVB will be provided over there. L is the center to center connection of the member. Okay, center to center length of the member from one connection to the center of next connection. That will be the member length. Okay, so from this center to this center will be our L. This screen sharing is okay. Is there any lag what I'm switching over here?
No, sir.
No,
Okay,
sir.
fine. Are you able to understand that? Follow this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please stop me if you have any questions, anything is not clear. So L is the distance from this center of this connection to the center of this connection, center of this connection to the center of this connection. That is the length L. Okay. So once you have that L and RVV, obtain this lambda VV. Okay. In this pi square E, this is epsilon. Okay. Ratio of the this stresses. It is square root of 250 by Fi epsilon. Okay. And inside this square root, what you have is this is not epsilon. This is actually E, modulus of elasticity, 2 into 10 raised to 5. Okay. Wrongly it has been printed as epsilon here, but this is E, Young's modulus. Okay, so lambda VV, substitute for these and obtain what is lambda VV. Similarly, one more factor is lambda phi, which is equal to B1 plus B2 by 2T divided by the same factor, epsilon into under square root pi square E by 250. Okay, epsilon can be obtained by 250 by Fi, its square root. Fi, whatever our yield stress is. If it is 250, epsilon comes out to be 1.0. Okay. Now B1, B2, what are the widths of the two legs of the angle section? In case if they are that is equal angle section, B1 will be equal to B2, or else B1 and B2 will be different. Okay. So use that value of B1, B2 from our steel table. Okay. What we adopt over there, remember on that basis we'll come to know what is B1 and what is B2 and go for finding lambda phi. Once you have lambda VV and lambda phi, lambda E can be determined. The equivalent slenderness ratio can be determined. After this, what you have to do, you have to come back to this expression. What over here. The method by which you use to calculate the FCD. Okay, come back over here, and what you have to do is calculate this phi. Okay, this phi value. What you will be using is not lambda but lambda e, equivalent slenderness ratio. What we obtained over there, lambda e has to be substituted here. So phi will be 0.5 plus alpha 0.49. Value of alpha for buckling class C, it is 0.49 here. It is 0.49. Buckling class C, angle belongs to buckling class C. Alpha value will come out to be 0.49. Okay, so substitute this value of alpha and lambda e, not lambda, lambda e, and get phi. On getting phi, you can substitute that directly over here in this equation, or you can even get the value of stress reduction factor and find out what is FCD. So that FCD will tell you what is the design strength under compression. Okay, so this is for single angle section. Mainly I have stressed on single angle section loaded through one leg, how to determine the strength under compression, design strength under compression, PD. Okay, if it is double angle section, okay, for the principal rafter, what I showed, when there are two angles connected back to back, if it is a double angle section, then what we'll be doing is we'll be directly determining what is its radius of gyration, calculate KL by R, go to table 9C, obtain what is FCD. Okay, because it is double angle section and it is loaded through both the legs, concentrically loaded, no need to find out equivalent slenderness ratio for double angle section. Okay, where we come across double angle section, this principal rafter, only and only this principal rafter and bottom tie member. For these two members, it will be concentrically loaded member. Go for calculating what? The radius of gyration for the double angle section when they are placed back to back. Okay, then determine what is the KL by R. Okay, this length. Okay, from this connection to this connection, what is the length? Okay, KL by R, find the KL by R. Table 9C, find FCD and determine the strength. Whereas for other members, other members, these members will be treating them as loaded through one leg only. Okay, so that is the procedure what you have, what will be following in any of these truss member design. We'll be either having the design of tension member or design of compression member, or else what we have to do is we have to design it for one of the force, either tension or compression, and check it for the other. Okay, I said there may be change in the nature of force due to wind load. There may be reversal of force over there. So what happens is you may have to design it for tension and check it for compression, or design it for compression, check it for tension. That is how we'll be dealing with that. Okay, so for today we'll end here. If you don't have any questions, we can end up, or you can ask any doubts or questions if you have. I think one more class is there. The next class Naina madam will be handling at 11:30. We have one more class. Tomorrow we'll start with the truss design. Today what you do is just go through this calculation of strength of the bolt and whatever we discussed here, design of tension member and compression member. From tomorrow's class, we'll take up the problem on trusses. Actual problem, we'll get into that truss member. Okay. So thank you all. So we'll finish. If you don't have any doubts, anything. You have to unmute if you are asking anything. Okay, thank you.